Another horrific terror attack in Pakistan. This time inside a packed mosque in Peshawar that has left over 100 people dead, most of them police officers. But the country's troubles are hardly confined to terrorism. Its economy is on the edge of a precipice. An acute food shortage has led to food riots. The Pakistani rupee is in free fall. The forex reserves are fast depleting. There's hardly any money left for imports. An unprecedented energy crisis has repeatedly plunged the country into darkness. Inflation has soared to levels not seen before. Petrol and diesel are unaffordable for most. Essentially, Pakistan is living a nightmare. And this dangerous cocktail of Islamist terror, political instability, and an economic meltdown now seem to threaten the very existence of Pakistan. Yet another terror attack in Pakistan and dozens of lives lost. This time, a suicide bomber blew himself up inside a packed mosque in the northwestern city of Peshawar. The latest attack targeting the police in a heavily fortified security compound has left at least 80 people dead and over 150 others injured. Many of them are in a critical condition. Hundreds of people had gathered for the afternoon prayers when the attack took place. The impact of the blast was so powerful, it brought down the upper story of the mosque, trapping dozens of worshippers under the rubble. Reports suggest close to 400 people, mostly police officers, were present inside the compound when the bomb went off. What followed were heart-rending scenes of panic and chaos, amid screams and bodies strewn all over. Rescuers could be seen cutting through the collapsed rooftop to get to the victims caught in the wreckage. The suicide bomber managed to pass through several barricades manned by security forces and gained entry into the red zone compound that houses the headquarters of the provincial police force and a counter-terrorism department in the volatile city of Peshawar. At first, some members of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or the TTP, claimed responsibility for the attack. But later, the terror organization that has been responsible for most of the terror attacks in Pakistan in recent times distanced itself from the Peshawar suicide bombing. Peshawar, which straddles the edge of Pakistan's tribal districts bordering Taliban-ruled Afghanistan, is frequently targeted by Islamist militant groups, including the Islamic State and the Pakistani Taliban. From recruiting members to arms transfers, this is where many of the terror operations are centered. This comes as the latest in a string of terror attacks that have left Pakistan battered. 2022 saw over 1,000 people being killed in hundreds of attacks, most of them carried out by the TTP. An enormous challenge, undoubtedly, but Pakistan's troubles are by no means confined to terrorism alone. The South Asian country is in the throes of its worst economic crisis in its entire 75-year history. Walloped by last year's catastrophic floods, Pakistan's economy is tottering on the brink of collapse. Pakistan is the world's 8th largest producer of wheat, but today it is struggling to feed its own people. A massive food shortage has led to food riots and stampedes at ration shops. Alarmingly, some 6 million people are experiencing acute food insecurity. This figure could very likely rise to 8.5 million in the days ahead. Amid an unprecedented energy crisis, major cities have faced repeated blackouts. Fuel prices have soared to levels not seen before. Today, petrol in Pakistan costs a staggering 262 rupees a litre and diesel 249 rupees. The Pakistani rupee has been in free fall, crashing to a record low of 265 against the US dollar. Inflation has skyrocketed past 35%. The forex reserves are at an all-time low. The country is left with just about $4 billion in forex, barely enough to sustain imports for 2 to 3 weeks. Pakistan's foreign debt is close to $99 billion, having surged by 1,500% in over 2 decades. It desperately needs a bailout from the International Monetary Fund, but the IMF is wary of lending more money to the country. To bring the IMF around, Islamabad has to meet a rash of very tough conditions. That means another steep hike in fuel and electricity prices is almost inevitable. And then there are fears that the government is set to unleash an avalanche of fresh taxes, which could break the back of the average Pakistani. As Pakistan grapples with a maze of seemingly insurmountable obstacles on a myriad fronts, its best and perhaps only hope is to get that elusive IMF bailout package. But will it materialize? As the country faces that billion-dollar question, one thing is clear: Pakistan is currently living a veritable nightmare. The dangerous cauldron of growing Islamist terror, ever-increasing political instability, and untold economic adversity that's worsening by the day seem to threaten the very existence of Pakistan today.